Babble with Ben.
Stephen Karapanagiotitis, aka Stav Karas. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. This is really, really awesome.
Look, thank you for the opportunity of having you on. It's just as much of a pleasure for me.
Man, I think it's a gift for any musician to be able to just come on and talk about their own music, and I think that's really that's a gift for most musicians to have such an opportunity. So I think that's a no-brainer.
It's really nice for me to actually be able to document who's around at Box Hill, because I've been here for a few years now, and it's you'll hear names in passing, but you won't know who they are. And so I think part of the reason I do this is so that people can go, oh, okay, well, who's Stav Karas? What's he all about? And we can sort of hear who you are and what you do, and that works for a lot of different artists too, I think. So
yeah, to say the least, Box Hill really is a melting pot for some amazing musicians. Like my composition class alone has some really amazing people. I'm like compositionally and like musically intimidated by everyone like every day. It's like, wow, you guys are just like in this other world, like freakishly good. So
name some names, come on.
Geez, like the whole class, like people like Sean McBride, Elijah Beckett, Jackson Traversa, Leah, Michael, like you guys all know who you are. Like you're all like yeah, cream of the crop. Awesome.
So you do composition as well. Are you a composer or a performer in this class?
I do the composition degree because I really just wanted to beef up my theory knowledge, because it supplements every part of my music in every way, because I also do teaching outside of this uni, and I want to be able to be more equipped to teach my students, but also it helps me writing my own music. It gives me more tools to be able to create more complex songs and not always go by the same formula. It just gives me more tools in my toolbox, essentially.
Have you put an augmented sixth chord in one of your songs yet?
I have not reached the augmented sixth, but I have been dabbling into the Neapolitan sixths. And they're quite fun. There's one on the album actually, and
awesome!
Very, very proud of that. Being like, yep, I put that damn Neapolitan sixth in there.
What is the Neapolitan sixth for dusty hungover 40-year-olds who can't quite remember?
So it basically kind of piggybacks the dominant fifth chord for the sort of the climax of the song. So for people who don't listen to music, it's basically like the climax of the book, essentially, or the peak moment in a movie. And just before that, so for going back to the musos, it's the 2 chord of the scale, but it's a major chord, but which is weird because it's usually in the minor key. So if you're in E minor, for example, it's an F major. But the reason the 6 is there is because it's the bottom note. So it'll be like for E minor, it'd be the note C, which is the 6th note of the E minor scale. Oh,
almost like a second version of an F chord.
Yes, it's an inversion, yeah. And then when you go straight into a dominant 5th chord after that, it creates this huge amount of suspense, and then if you want to, you can finally resolve back to the 1, and you got a song.
Speaking of songs, you've got an EP or an album coming up?
I got an LP coming out. It's a relatively lean album, 8 songs. I actually got a single coming out today, which is off the back of the album, and I'm really proud of the songs that are coming out on it. There's quite a bit of diversity in there, and I take from a lot of different influences from all different parts of my life, and just trying to, again, I'm in like the melting pot stage of my music writing, where I'm trying to sort of decide what I want to create. And you can definitely hear that in the album, that there's a lot of different kinds of songs. Like there's like some sort of dabbles of System of a Down with some of them. Then you can run into some Red Hot Chili Peppers, definitely some Metallica. So, and it's right off the bat, you'd think, wow, those 3 bands, like sort of in your ear, wouldn't really go together. But it's basically just trying to sort of put everything in one sort of box.
And you're playing guitar and singing, yeah?
Everything you hear on the album is me. So there's the drums. Like I'm not playing actual drums. Like it's programmed, obviously, but bass, keys, vocals, guitar, like it's all me.
Wow. Yeah.
Try to be the one-man band. Right now I'm the bedroom producer, so I mixed and mastered everything as well.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it really is an album of like me.
Did you find it exhausting making everything yourself? Did you find you second guessed yourself at all as you for example, which pickup on the guitar you're using to play this stuff, or is it all just bridge pickup for what you do?
Definitely, to an extent, there is an element of imposter syndrome. Not so much when I was making the music, because the music, I knew it was coming from a place that I knew just meant a lot to me when I was writing the songs. I knew that when I wrote that song, it meant something to me. So definitely I felt no insecurity when it came to that. It was more so the mixing and the mastering, because in the music sphere, it's like when you go to a party, like you want to look the part. When you fall into Spotify, when you fall into Tidal or Deezer or put any streaming platform, you want to sound the part. You want to make sure you're not over compressed. You want to make sure you're loud enough, but obviously not adhering to the loudness war. You want to make sure everything rings out properly. You want to make sure that the layers aren't too textured or not textured enough. It's basically keeping all that in mind. So there were definitely days that I would listen to the songs and like you almost wouldn't be able to tell anymore. Like, what does this sound like? And then that's where it's really important to have references. So I would always reference back to other tracks. So I would go to my favorite albums production-wise and listen to them and think, okay, that's kind of what I want to aim for.
Which were your reference tracks?
Definitely in terms of production alone, my favorite albums by far. So the Black Album is probably one of my favorite produced albums of all time, especially the drums. Other ones that I was keeping in mind is Stadium Arcadium and Blood Sugar Sex Magic by Red Hot Chili Peppers. They have really, really good production. I didn't touch too much into 70s albums just because I felt it didn't suit the sound of the songs on the album. I needed that more modern drum sound and the more modern compression to suit the songs. Once you start going into the more dry 70s sound, it just didn't marry up very well. So that could be something in the future, but as for now, it just didn't really work. I like that very sort of heavily compressed, sort of Rick Rubin style sort of sound, but obviously not over compressing like Californication or something.
Well, that first Mars Volta album I always remember was like a brick wall.
Yeah, you put that into like your door. You just see it's not even like you don't even see the waveform. It's just a solid brick.
Sausage, yes. Yeah. So, what's next? What have you got some gigs coming up? Have you got?
Believe it or not, like I just put out this music just to really just for pure enjoyment. I'm not actually really a performer. Believe it or not, my dream is actually just going on, like just clicking on Spotify on my phone and just seeing that Square album on whatever streaming platform and seeing my name to that. Even if it means that 2 people listen to it, or 200 people, or 2,000, like that would be pretty cool. But even if it's just 2 people, that is like, it makes me feel like a star. Seeing like Stav Karas, Back to Bite, like that is like, I look at that and I think, wow, you did something really cool. So I put out this music for my personal enjoyment, just being able to hear it. I am like the bedroom songwriter producer. I'm not really a performer. I did perform back in the day with a band I hold very dear to me. We were called Clanger, and we wrote some really awesome songs together, and we all had great chemistry. All the members know who they are, like, past and present, and that really played into the music I write now. Like, we had awesome chemistry, and we used to, play around different venues, and we used to have a great time.
I do remember when I first put some music up on Spotify, and I was like, wow, that's my name on Spotify, because it almost feels like a one-way street, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, all these big people are, coming into my phone, and I guess I still hold over from maybe the Sanity and the JB Hi-Fi days, where you'd walk in and you'd buy a CD, and it's like, oh wow, you can buy a CD, and it always felt like it was a big gap to cross. But now, I pay $10 or something to DistroKid, and boom, it's up there. It's up there quickly.
I have nothing but good things to say about DistroKid. All the sort of promo you can do through them. You can like vote to have your song on a playlist, and it's really easy. For example, to like create all these promo videos and time your releases and all that. For example, I just paid to have my songs on there basically forever. So if anything happens to like an account one day, the songs remain, because you imagine like something happens, like for whatever reason, like your card was a bit short that day, and your subscription stopped. all your albums get pulled from the stores, and it's a pain in the ass. It's not a good thing. So if you just pay that like legacy fee once, it's expensive. Trust me, it's not cheap, but in the long term, it is worth it.
I think a lot of people would vibe on that because it seems that the trend for computer services these days is always a subscription. For example, Adobe Cloud or all of the Avid stuff as well, like Pro Tools.
It is disheartening. It's like I feel like, yeah, I do miss the days where it's just like you buy something and it's just yours. That's why I love Logic so much. I bought it and I can go home and say that piece of Logic software is mine. I can open it and not worry that if I don't make the payment that month, it'll just get pulled from my computer. It's like I could, let's just say I'm walking around with the Mac, I drop it and it's like, oh, computer gone, and got to log into my account into another place and I can download the whole software again and it's still mine. Like that's a cool thing. I do hope that one-time purchases could become a thing again one day. But
I think they're good, actually. I mean, I remember back in the days of when I was using Pro Tools and you always had to carry around an iLock, and if you lost the iLock, you lost all the software, unless, of course, you paid a subscription where everything's backed up in the cloud. And I'm like, can't you guys just do that anyway? Like, it's ridiculous that, this $2 USB stick, which they charge $100 for, contains thousands of dollars worth of software, which you can lose or people can steal. Like, I remember when I was studying at RMIT, someone stole the iLock off the back of one of the studio iMacs, and there was thousands of dollars worth of software that they had to replace. And so, I think this idea of buying it once and keeping it, I'd love to see more of that again.
Yeah, it's great. Like you just got to exploit that wherever you can get it. So places like Logic, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if Reaper also is a one-time purchase. Maybe I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that, but. Yeah, any of those one-time purchases really is a cool thing. And for the little guy, when it comes to music, the guy who's just starting out, the last thing they want is to get hit by subscription fees every month. Because some people unfortunately just don't make a lot of money. It's just the sort of like music atmosphere we are in these days. It's very hard to make money. So the last thing you need is this constant subscription fee, constantly just like sort of knocking you on the back of your head. Just like, hey, pay for me, but also at the same time make money, but also pay for me. Like, it's not nice.
No, I think that what you're doing with Logic is very, very smart. Are you finding that you used something before Logic, or is Logic what you grew up with?
I was a religious user of Audacity, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I used to, like, when I was about, I think 9 or 10, I would like write albums for myself on Audacity. I had the most like unorthodox, ridiculous setup because I was just trying to make do with whatever like I had at the time, because obviously I wasn't a serious, like super serious like songwriter at 9 or 10.
What are you talking about?
And so what we'll do is I would grab like my USB microphone. It was kind of just like a knockoff of an SM58. I would put it, I would like lean it on my guitar amplifier. My guitar interface at the time, I think it was a Digitech RP90, and it had a drum machine on it. Like a built-in drum machine. That was like my band. And I would just jam like different riffs over it, and that would be like a song, and I would record that into Audacity, and like the sound quality was horrible, but I was looking at that thinking, oh my God, that's like an album. And I'm like, oh God, I'd steal all of like mum and dad's blank CDs and just make like 12-track albums for myself with just like 7 minutes of me just playing different riffs, just like writing music on the fly over a drum machine. So yeah, sorry, mum and dad, for taking all your blank CDs, but I promise you, musically for me, it was very worth it.
You were doing them a favour because you can't even give away blank CDs now, hey?
Oh, no, unfortunately not.
Do you still have those recordings? Have you put them on Spotify from 9-year-old Stephen? Or because that would be a real trip, wouldn't it?
Hopefully for a 20-year anniversary, there can be some demos. Of me just trying to chug through a pseudo Metallica riff from 2011. That would really be something.
Be like the Vault with Prince.
Maybe not the Vault with Gene Simmons, where I'm.
Oh, why is that? What's the Vault with Gene Simmons?
I'm pretty sure it's actually like a metal safe, like, and it's got all the demos from all over the years. So going back as early as like the 60s.
Wow.
When I'm pretty sure when he was with Paul Stanley and Wicked Lester, You get some stuff from like the Revenge era in the 90s, Carnival of Souls. It's really cool for the Kiss fan, but like for like the casual fan, probably not very feasible. But like if you're a super fan of Kiss, yeah, really, really something.
Well, Kiss do attract those super fans, don't they?
Oh yeah, it is like if there is any band that has a cult following, it's Kiss, and like I'm one of them. Really, like oh my god.
Who else are your childhood influences?
Childhood influences. So like if you go back as far as like maybe like 5 or 6, like I was literally when I was in the car with like my dad or my mum, I would actually put in the CD of like Barry White or George Benson. Like mum and dad loved George Benson, so obviously I would listen to that as well, and I'd repeat the same 2 tracks. And like just listen to that constantly. If you date to about maybe when I was in prep, that's when like I got introduced to Kiss, and like the Dynasty album is still one of my favorite albums of all time. If you track to when I was about 9, that's when I started playing guitar. Black Album was the thing. Like I remember when I was like sitting in like after my first guitar lesson, Dad was driving me home, and he put in a CD. He must have listened to it from when he was also in uni, I imagine, because that's how old he would have been when it came out. You hear like the opening sort of line to Enter Sandman on the Black, and I look, I'm like, what the hell is that? Because like, mind you, like obviously metal was a very popular thing already by 2010, obviously. I had never heard it. I thought Kiss was about as heavy as you get. Then I hear Metallica, the Black Album, I'm like, I have never heard anything like this. And then as soon as the main riff kicks in, I'm like, I was sold. And I'm pretty sure I ruined Enter Sandman and Zabba like, for the rest of my life for Dad. Because I reckon I played that song at least 250,000 times, like just in that week. So I can't speak for any time after that. But oh my God, that album for me just set me up for life. After that, Queen, Beatles, Red Hot Chili Peppers, System of a Down. Some elements of Greek music also fall into my music sometimes. So obviously because I'm very culturally Greek as well. So it does sometimes come out in my music.
Have you got any bouzouki parts?
Bouzouki parts? No, but I mean I will reveal this a little bit about the album. The opening drum part to the whole album, like the opener is really Greek influence. Like you like that's like the sort of drum beat you hear when as soon as everyone just runs to the dance floor after just guzzling down like 2 liters of ouzo, and they're ready to just go off the charts.
Because you're very proud of being able to marry sort of the hard rock and the Greek sides of your life, hey?
You should. I think your music should be a reflection of what you are. And if there happens to not be any cultural music in there because you weren't very close to it in your childhood, like that's also fine. But I also look to people like System of a Down who were very culturally Armenian. 3 of them actually, 2 of them being born in Lebanon, 1 being born in Armenia. They were very close to their roots, and you can hear it in their music. Like it's so doused in sort of Middle Eastern influences. And I also took influence after that as well, because that was kind of the blueprint for me of incorporating it into metal music and having it translate over, because a lot of it is just scales and rhythms if you think about it. You just got to kick on the distortion pedal and chuck it through a Marshall amp and you're good to go.
And away it goes, hey?
Yeah.
What, I'm just trying to think. What else do you find yourself exploring more music now that you are at Box Hill studying composition? Are you starting to, look at romantic and classical periods and taking those influences in as well?
I wouldn't say that the light bulb has lit up for me just yet for those. I obviously know where they stand in the musical sphere. I know how important they are, and if you were to take those out of history, like it would be completely different. So I know how important they are. In terms of actual interest and what musically excites me, I don't think I've tapped into that just yet, but I have, like, for example, Aid Vincent, all of his lectures have really clear citations of different music from different eras. So even a lot of Australian music, so people like Billy Thorpe and some Cold Chisel and, some American influences like Bob Dylan. I now listen to those because of all the lectures that he put in. So... And that's kind of how I got into the Beatles and like especially like the Revolver album, and just seeing like how really forward thinking that was for the 1960s. Even if I listen to that now, that's like, wow, that sounds really forward thinking for now. it blew me away. So it also inspires me to potentially try some of that in my music, even if it's just a bedroom producer. So
I think the Beatles are just such a huge influence for so many musicians because they were not only extremely talented, but I think they were in the right place at the right time. Like multi-track recording was just coming in, the distribution networks for the music, and it wasn't television hadn't been around for that long when the Beatles came out, so. No. It was just, it's an amazing phenomenon. And just to think that they're, half of them are still alive too, aren't they?
And the one thing to note is even if you're not a Beatles fan, because look, there are some people that just don't like the Beatles, and that I was one of them for the longest time until like this year. But the one thing you cannot deny is they influenced your influences. So I was always a Kiss fan. Beatles were one of the biggest influences of Kiss. Like if you hear Gene Simmons sing all his lines clean, it's a dead ringer for Paul McCartney, John Lennon vocal lines. Like it's a direct citation. It's same with like bands like Led Zeppelin, for example. Like I'm not the biggest Zeppelin fan, but you cannot deny that Led Zeppelin influenced so many bands. And if it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't have my favorite bands right now. So that's the thing you got to keep in mind is you don't have to like their music necessarily, but you cannot deny the impact they had. So that's something I try to keep in mind.
I think it's always worth, you always have your heroes, but when you start investigating who your heroes were, you always strike gold, I think, because Jeff Buckley is one of my huge idols, heroes. And it was through him that I started listening to Led Zeppelin as well. And I was like, oh, wow, like this is kind of like, you listen to their first album, but then you listen to Led Zeppelin 4, and then you listen to some of the older stuff, and you just go, yeah, like this is supremely influential.
You hear the dots connect. Like now, because of what influenced the Beatles, now I'm starting to listen to Chuck Berry. So I keep going back, and eventually, if I keep going back far enough, I'll start hearing like the claves and the rhythms of like the Paleolithic era. If I just keep going back far enough, and oh man, I'll create amazing music from that. So.
Put it around the campfire. Yeah, I do. Well, I go to some festivals where there are drumming circles, and I think that when you're hearing those acoustic drums and you're in front of the fire and you've had a drink or two or whatever, it really does release something quite ancient. And so I do quite like, getting to the bedrock of percussion and that sort of stuff. It's really good.
So, a weird sort of mention is you feel that sort of like ancient light up, especially when I hear like, for example, Red Hot Chili Peppers. For some reason, there is something about their music in particular that just, it lights it up. Any band from around that era, for some reason, it does not do the same thing, even though a lot of them were pretty amazing. Red Hot Chili Peppers is something different for me. So if I hear songs from Stadium Arcadium or Californication especially, even, the album that just came out today, Unlimited Love, really like it just like lights up this different part of your brain that just is sort of dormant until it hears Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's really weird. It's like biologically it was put there for Red Hot Chili Peppers. Whenever they play something, it just goes ding. Like, you hear Snow, or you hear, I don't know, like Hey.
Under the Bridge.
Under the Bridge, yeah, exactly.
That was a musical awakening for me. I mean, it's sort of funny thinking back to, it must have been 1993 or 1994, and I'm like in grade 5, and I'm like going, oh yeah, Under the Bridge. And it's like, and then you get to, a little bit older, and it's like, wow, I was like a 12-year-old singing about someone scoring heroin and shooting up under a bridge. Like,
then you should imagine how I felt when I looked back at what half the Kiss songs were about.
Oh, really? What?
You do not even want to get into that. I
do. Tell me.
Oh, yeah, too many citations of butts and all the other neighboring body parts, and I was singing that religiously when I was like 9 or 10. Looking back on that now, it's like, Steve, God damn it, what were you thinking? So that's the thing. I'm much more connected to the music side of things. So as soon as I go into the lyrics, it's like, oh my God, like. If you listen to a song like, I don't know, like let's just name one, like Great Expectations, for example, just go listen to the lyrics from that. And it's like, what in the like blue hell is that? But then you hear the instrumentation and it's like masterpiece.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're so conflicted. It's like, thank God YouTube puts out instrumentals and you can just sort of like bury your head in the sand. It's so good.
I think you were telling me you were in class doing a presentation earlier this week, and you were talking about one of, or a few of Kiss's songs that were about 16-year-olds.
Oh, I mean, Christine 16.
That's the one.
And oh my God, like I think that song expired before they were even a band. They wrote it past its expiry date, and I'm pretty sure they sang it like 5 years ago or something. Like they might as well change it to like Christine 60 or something, you know, because Christine 16, when you're 65, I'm watching Eugene. It's well, to put it in the nicest way, it's confusing.
Oh, you do hear all sorts of wild rock star stories from the 60s and 70s. I mean, there are stories about Jimmy Page, the guitarist from Led Zeppelin.
I heard about that.
Basically having a teenager locked up in his house for a year or so.
Yeah, you don't even get me started on like people like Miles Davis or even John Lennon to some extent, you know, writing Imagine, and then he was a wife beater. So
yeah.
There comes the saying of separate the art from the artist. Sometimes it's hard to do that because in a way, if you can't say that for your own, that your music is a part of you, and then you got to do it for other people and separate the art from the artist. Like I get really conflicted sometimes hearing Chuck Berry's music and then hearing some of the really disgusting stuff that he did as a person. It's really conflicting because you think, oh wow, this music is like, I'm connecting to it so much, but it's the vessel of this guy who did such troubling actions to people, and it's like, I don't know what to think about that. So to separate art from the artist, I think works a lot on paper, but once you put it to your mentality and how you connect with people, sometimes it just doesn't go.
It's funny how it keeps popping up again and again and again. I mean, you see it with Michael Jackson and R. Kelly, Chris Brown. Like you almost wonder whether it's the rule rather than the exception sometimes. Like when people get to that stage where they have, basically unlimited recognition, unlimited funds, unlimited access to drugs, like some of them just go off the rails. Hey?
It's very, very frightening. And what frightens me is we may not necessarily know everything that's happened. Like there could be an artist out there that could have done something and we don't know yet. And it's really puzzling. So you just got to try, like as a musician yourself, keep your head down, just write the music you love, and whatever you do, treat people with like the utmost respect that you can. I try to do that with my students, for example, in my work. Like my students are like my little siblings. So like if something, if they're not in a good mood that day, for example, like I feel it, like I'm not happy. If the people around me, like my family and my partner are not happy, I feel it. So it puzzles me when like the really big artists who do these egregious acts do these things. It's like, why?
Yeah, it's a mystery, isn't it? I mean, you wonder whether they had that empathy to begin with, or whether it was slowly drained out of them. Or
it's really hard to know.
Happened.
The brain is so incredibly complex. So then you wonder how does it connect the dots to do such like sometimes like demonic actions in a way, like like what you cited with Jimmy Page. Like that's what you see on like Four Corners.
Yeah,
sometimes, and that just went by in the 70s.
Yeah, it was wild, wasn't it? I mean, I wasn't there. It was a bit before my time, but I think it is a good thing that people are more socially aware these days, and that sort of stuff doesn't slide. I mean, I grew up in the 90s where homophobia and sexism was almost par for the course, right? And you do watch. For example, if you watch Friends, the show Friends from the 90s, right? The jokes that Chandler makes about his dad, they would never fly in modern TV. And it wasn't that long ago. So I think it is a good thing that the culture is changing.
I mean, even as recent as like the mid-2000s, you heard a lot of homophobia. Like I would hear it around like, in my school and stuff. Like it would come around sometimes, and it was just it just seemed so like not normal, but like it was just it didn't have like that double take of like, what the hell did you just say? It's like, whereas it now it does, rightfully so, because imagine just going your day to day, just being who you are, and then that's not all right with someone like that. As a gay person or a transgender person, I'd be so confused and so hurt that like I just went about my life existing, and someone had a problem with that.
Yeah.
when I just did nothing. Like that's so troublesome to me. I don't get it.
There's a funny meme that's going around which I 100% resonate with, where it's got a picture of a religious person saying, I can't do that because of my religion. And it's like, yep, thumbs up. But if someone says, you can't do that because of my religion, then it's sort of thumbs down, you know what I mean? Like that sort of prejudice. I mean, yeah, I mean, there was a saying going around when the gay marriage debate was happening, right? Is that if you don't like gay marriage, don't marry a gay person.
Well, I just figured it's none of my business. Like at the end of the day, it really is none of your business. Like if it's not going to affect your life, like, you know, it's like a slight inconvenience for you, but you will willingly screw someone else's life up. You know, like, people struggle enough these days to find happiness, and you're going to trump someone else's happiness just by having a little selfish thing like that. And like whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, like I don't care, honestly. Like, you know, people are people, but you got to treat your person, like you got to treat the next person to you with just basic decency. I don't care where politically you lean. Respect is the bare minimum. So that's what I think. So.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think there does seem to be a lot of polarization in politics at the moment.
Yeah, I try not to connect it too much into my music because I want like, you know, I wouldn't care if like a liberal person or a conservative person listens to my music. I just want them to listen to that and then walk away feeling happier than they were before. I don't care, you know, who you voted for or whatever. I would hope you're a good person and treat people with respect, but I just care that you like my music. I don't care who you are. So.
And they could buy some merch too if they were, if they were keen.
Like, I don't care what you say. Like, buy my damn merch.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on, Stav. Where can people find you on the internet? There's STAVKARAS.
Yep. So on Instagram, it's Stav Karas Official. On Facebook, it's just under the name Stav Karas. You can find me on all streaming platforms. So Amazon Music, Spotify, Deezer, Tidal, all there. You can, if you make a story, you can put my music as your soundtrack.
Sweet.
Yep. Totes not a recommendation to do so. But yeah, man, you can find me on there, and I hope to potentially explore different streaming platforms in the future. I just got to go wherever the wave goes for musos, really.
That's it.
And thank you very much for this opportunity. I think it's really, really generous that you do this for people.
Thank you for taking the time to come on. It's really been fun. It's been great.
It's been amazing. So thank you very much for this.
Cool. Thanks, Dave.
Awesome.